This is Presentation 2, Effective Interviewing for Leaders, for Leadership 533, William Clark, done by Alexander Williams, Liz Stauffer, and Ted Fluck.
In this presentation, we will discuss the effective principles of an interview, including how to plan an interview, conduct, and close an interview. We will then discuss how to apply the interview results to better understand staff relationships, project development, and development of the leadership strategy. Interviews play a central role in the professional world. An interview is a two-party interaction, and at least one party has an specific, serious purpose, and that usually involves the asking and answering of questions. There are many types of interviews that can take place in day-to-day business. Employment interviews are used to hire potential candidates. Supervisors use performance appraisal interviews to help develop their staff, as well as form their own leadership styles and strategies to get the results they desire. When there are issues or problems in the workplace, a disciplinary interview can be used to determine courses of action needed for coercive measures. Investigative and research interviews can all be used to analyze project development.
In Charles Stewart's January 1st, 2000 article, Interviewing Principles and Practices, he suggests that the most effective principles are to have a plan, appropriate structure, primary and probing questions, and to utilize outstanding listening skills. The text suggests that interview principles are first, the strategies involved. Strategies are the planning and the preparation for an interview, which will be covered in later detail on the next slides, and conducting the interview, covered in later detail as well. Second are the types of interviews, such as information gathering, career research, and employment interviews. The types of interviews are essential principles of effective interviewing and help the leader better understand the staff, project status, or issues and personal goals. All of these aspects will help build a needed leadership strategy in order to help facilitate the accomplishment of the leadership's goals. These will be discussed in the slide titled, Applying the Interview Results. Lastly are the ethics of interviewing, such as the obligations of the interviewer and the interviewee. One cannot forget that there are at times legal aspects of an interview as well as ethics involved. Interviewees need not embellish nor misrepresent themselves, and hiring interviews should never overpromise or treat others without full respect. Once the interview has thought through the principles of an effective interview, it is time to start preparation.
Before you have your interview, it is important to plan for it ahead of time. Determine why you are having the interview and what information you wish to gain from the interviewee. Define the goals you wish to accomplish from the interview. Consider the questions you wish to ask ahead of time. As an interviewer, it is important to choose the right combination of questions to gather the information you are looking to uncover. It is also significant to have probing questions in advance. As an interviewer, you should try to predict possible answers to primary questions in order to allow the interview to be more effective. The interviewer must also use the appropriate structure for the interview. Although unstructured interviews are used, they are less effective than structured and moderately structured interviews. They also raise more opportunity for mistakes and lack of control for the interviewer. Physical setting of the interview has a great deal of influence on the results. Picking a location is essential. For example, a lunch interview, sitting together at a table, encourages equality and casualness, while an interview in an office with the supervisor sitting at his desk may display the feeling of authority and power. An interviewer must consider many variables before he or she conducts their interview. What are you looking to accomplish from this interview? What questions can you ask that can help you reach your goals? What type of interview are you looking to have? How do you want to come across to the interviewee? All of these are important factors to consider when planning for an interview. Now we will discuss the important aspects that are included in conducting an interview.
When conducting an interview, there is a formal process of an opening or introduction, a body, and a conclusion. It is important that no area is overlooked as they are all vital to the successful interview. There are many types of interviews, as we briefly discussed in the introduction. However, all interviewers should follow the standard format. The opening or introduction to an interview always sets the tone for the interview. The interviewer has an immediate impact on the tone of the interview by the first few choice words. In many cases, the interviewer will follow a greeting and orientation pattern in the introduction. However, the introduction can have very different tones. Is this a disciplinary interview or possibly a research interview to determine if a project is indeed way off course? Then the questions and tone of the introduction will have a more direct and facts-oriented than as if the interview was for hiring or an annual appraisal for a top salesperson. After the introductions are completed and the interviewee has a solid understanding of the expectations and parameters of the interview, we move on to the questions in the body of the interview. As discussed, the interviewer should be prepared for the meeting before it occurs. A majority of that preparation is in the preparing of questions that need answering. An important technique discussed in Calvin Son's 10 Tips for Effective Interviewing is knowing the difference between and utilizing open and closed-ended questions. He states, open questions begin with words such as who, what, where, and when. That is, they give the other person a chance to give a narrative response without being confined by the question. Such questions are good when one is generally seeking background information. Their disadvantage is that they can cause an interviewee to ramble on endlessly. Closed questions, on the other hand, call for a specific answer, usually a yes or no. A person who asks a closed-ended question is usually seeking a particular answer to a particular question. The disadvantage of closed-ended questions is that in using them, you may be jumping too quickly to conclusions. A good interviewer will review and clarify the details of important information that was learned in the interview. At the closing, it is vital to discuss the next steps needed and explain the course of action for the interviewee. Close with pleasantries that need not be phony. Express appreciation or concern in response to the tone of the interview. According to Sammy Berry's How to Interview and Access Candidates Freely, the post-interview is vital to the meeting's success. Do not make judgments or form opinions for at least 30 minutes after the interview is complete. Personal opinions are usually based on personal judgments, biases, and stereotypes. Within those 30 minutes, write down your opinions and ideas about the interview or the particular candidate. Follow up with any actionable items and make sure to follow through on commitments. If hiring an individual, make sure to make a decision in a timely manner and prepare to make their first day of work memorable.
Mastering the essential principles of effective interviewing will help the leader better understand the staff, gain knowledge of project status, or possibly insight to work issues and even personal goals. All of these aspects will help build the needed leadership strategy in order to help facilitate the accomplishment of the leadership's goals. As a leader, interviews are conducted for a goal. Often leaders can build their strategies around the forming of information gathered in their interview process. Sam Walton was known for soliciting information from other business owners by reaching out and interviewing them. He stated that he learned a lot about how to run Walmart that way. There are many values to reaching out and proposing to interview those with knowledge in your organization. Project management is one of them. Leaders are often in a position that is above the day-to-day interaction of a workplace. However, that does not make them immune to the responsibility of a project. Leaders must have formal meetings and interviews in order to understand if workplace projects are on time, on budget, and to standard. Gathering this data will often require primary questions as well as secondary questioning to ensure the details and information given line up and are factual. Quality interviews will also allow the interviewer or leader in this situation to understand employee motivations and strengths. All members of the team are likely to be different in these matters, and choosing the right interviewees can be essential to determine the pulse of the group. Alder states that who you interview is likely to shape the value of what you learn. He also states that you should cultivate a network of contacts who can let you know about the job. This is outstanding insight for a leader to understand. By working through a respected network of associates, Leaders can interview and understand their team in ways that will facilitate their leadership strategy. This will ensure success when employing a leadership strategy.
As Calvin Sun states, whether you're having a discussion with an employee about performance issues, trying to gather information about why a project failed, looking for feedback from a staff member about team dynamics, or evaluating somebody for possible promotion, conducting a successful interview requires skill and planning on the leader's part. In conclusion, we have discussed the effective principles of an interview, the merits of proper planning of an interview, as well as how to conduct and close an interview. We reflected on how leaders apply the interview results to better understand their staff relationships, project development, and development of their leadership strategy. Interviews play a central role in the professional world. An interview is a two-way party interaction, the core of a leader's communication skills. If a leader follows the principles of effective interviewing, it will ensure their future success.